Hey guys, and welcome to a new video here on Phloshop. My name is Joseph. In today's video, we're going to be going over behind the scenes of a monochromatic beauty shoot that I did. But before I get into more details, I just want to take a little time and say that I hope you're washing your hands, sanitizing as often as possible, especially when you touch foreign items or objects, and doing your best to isolate and stop the spread of the coronavirus so we can get over this as soon as possible, because I can't wait to go outside and shoot. Alright, so talking about today's shoot, a monochromatic beauty shoot, I just want to throw more light on the definition. So I'm going to go on to Google, and right here Google says a monochrome is a photograph or picture developed or executed in black and white or in varying tones of only one color. Now, what this brings me to is the fact that as artists or photographers, we are always creative, always trying to do something new, experiment or explore, and we can do this primarily with a lot of color, right? So colors make your images more interesting. Even if you're painting, you have different colors to play with and make your image more exciting. When it comes to a monochrome or a monochromatic beauty image, in this case, you're only limited to varying tones of that same color. Now, that is going to bring me to certain things that I feel are going to be problems. All right, so the first thing is, once I'm working in one color tone, I'm going to have a little bit of interest, right? Because I'm just working in one color tone or color space. I'm also going to have less drama because we're still working in the same color space. And then I'm also going to have less contrast, because in my previous videos I've been mentioning that apart from using your light to create contrast, you can also use color. So now that we don't have the ability to use color to create contrast, what are the solutions to these problems? And I have a note here because I've made some pointers that I want to go over quickly and then show you guys the solution, and then also go onto my computer screen and show you the images step by step as I built the shots or overcame those problems. Yes. Let me talk about my gear and get that out of the way. So I'm shooting with my Canon EOS R and my 100mm macro lens, and what that's allowing me to do is just 100mm, you know, is my favorite focal length, so I can get really close to the subject and take macro shots if I need to, and I also can go a little bit further back and get headshots of the subject. Now that that's out of the way, I want to quickly talk about the idea that I had. So I was looking at monochromatic color tones, and I was looking at earthy tones, so the model's skin tone, her lipstick, her eye color, her hair color, and even the background had to be within the same color space. You can vary in tone just a tiny bit, but once you're in the warm or earthy tones, it's still a little bit more monochromatic in my opinion, and that's the idea that I went for. So when I started shooting, the first thing was the background color. So I selected a dark brown color because it was going to match the model's skin tone. The other thing I also noticed was that her hair was dark on the inside, but the edges had this orangish warm tone. So again, our background color, her skin tone, and the hair are already in the same color space for us to work with. Then the makeup artist also put a little bit of a reddish tint on her eyes to add more depth. So again, we're working in the same color space. Our main problem is contrast or drama, and so we're using a little bit of the varying tones to create a little bit of contrast that we can get. Alright, so the eye color being a little darker is going to add drama to her face and contrast as well. Her lipstick also being slightly darker is also bringing more attention to her face, adding contrast and creating depth. Now the last thing that we needed to do was create a lighting solution. So when I started shooting, everything was blending in, right? So I decided to go for a 2-light setup. So my main light is the beauty dish, and I chose the beauty dish because of the quality of light it produces. It's a harsh light, but it's also soft. So that already is giving me contrast in the image that is going to make it look flattering. Now the next thing is, when I was looking at the image, was that she was blending into the background. The background is dark, her hair is dark, and she has a little bit of an orange dye, like I mentioned earlier, in her hair. So I wanted to maybe make it pop a little bit but still add some depth to the background, and the way I did that was by using a cone on my second light. So the cone on the second light had a grid in there so the light doesn't spill everywhere. So I'll show you in the first shot when we're analyzing the images. You see my first shot, the light was everywhere and it's not what I wanted. I just wanted to add a little bit of a glow at the bottom part of the frame so she's separated from the background. Again, I also want to create drama and contrast, so the top part of the frame is not going to be as bright as the middle part. Okay, so now I'm going to jump onto my screen and we're going to analyze the images from the test that I did to the final lighting that I did, so you guys can see exactly what the impact is using this setup.
Imagine us there.
Alright, so now that we're on my screen, I just want to quickly go over the settings, including my thought process when I was lighting, or how I broke everything down and built the shot. So the very first shot, I had my main light, which is a beauty dish, on a tiny bit just because I wanted to be able to focus. I was using the modeling lamp and it was set to, I think, 1/128 power. And this shot was mainly to see what the background light was doing. So you can see in the back, it's really bright and it's kind of overshadowing my subject right now, and it's just overly bright. I didn't want it to be like this. And the cone was bare. There was no grid in there, so the light was just going everywhere. Now in the next frame, you'd see that I put the grid on the cone and it's already focused the light, and it's also reduced the power a little bit. Now this was okay, but I felt it wasn't spreading enough for me. Okay, so I was varying the distance between the cone and the background till I found what worked. And in the next frame, I added my main light. So when I did, I also noticed that even though the background light was as bright as it was on its own, when I added the main light, it also added light to the background. And so I was losing the effect of the glow that I put on the background. So in my next frame, I upped the power of that strobe and it was still too much, so I went back again. So I took off the main light and went back to find a perfect spot for the background light. So in this one, you can see, if I quickly click on the first shot, you can see that the first shot was really bright and the spread was almost everywhere. And in this current image, which is the one on the left, you can see that it's softer and the glow looks a little bit more gradual, right? So now in my next frame, I was able to get the glow exactly where I wanted it. So again, if I click on the one before that, you can see it was really powerful, and here it's just glowing in the back at a level that I really wanted. So the next thing I did was turn on my main light and reduce the power a little bit, and it gave me this exposure. So if I quickly just go back into my main shoot, this is a series of images for my main shoot. Let me just narrow it down to what I have selected. So this is a setup that I went with. So the main light at an exposure that I really like, the background also at an exposure that I really like, and now we can analyze the image a bit more. So if you look around the eyes, for example, if I just quickly make this bigger, you can see that we have this red tone that I was talking about in the frame. You can see it's adding a little bit of drama to the image. The background is also a little bit lighter at the bottom, so we can see some of the orange or brown tone in her hair on the tips a tiny bit, but at the top it's a little bit darker, so we are creating contrast that we were lacking because we're working with monochromatic tones. And her lipstick also is slightly darker. Naturally, I think her lips are pink, but we just changed it to brown, so it's, you know, it goes with this color scheme that we're working with. All right, so basically that is it. So I'm creating contrast with light on the background on hair. Her skin tone is also brighter, and that's the subject. That's the main focus of the image. And so once that's brightest, I mean, we're sorted. So her lip, her eyes, adding drama, the glow in the background, and the main light adding separation, contrast, and drama to the image. It gives us the lighting that we really wanted. So I'm just going to quickly go over some of the other frames that I captured as well. So using my 100mm, I was able to go a little further away. I took some landscapes as well. So there's a series of images just so I can play around. So for example, this one, I know I'm going to crop because of Instagram, and I'm going to get a final crop with it, but I'm cropping off her shoulders, and maybe I'd want it in some of the frames, and so I took landscape so that I can have that if I want it. And then I was talking about another variation that you can do. I didn't show that in the behind the scenes. So for this, I turned the background light away from the background and I raised it up so it lights up her hair. So it's giving this glow around the edges of her hair. If it's something that you're interested in or something you want to try, you know that it's possible, it can be done. So it's lighting her hair, creating separation, but then the background goes really dark, and we're also getting a little bit of light over her shoulders and her collarbone, just a tiny bit. And there's another variation where I, instead of putting the glow at the bottom, like in this frame, you can see the glows at the bottom and well positioned because I spent time doing this. The last frame, I was just showing you guys that you can vary the position. So this time I took the glow upwards, and if I, for example, crop this image a little bit to a frame that I would like, Let's say 4:5 for Instagram, and just select an area that is going to be more interesting to me. So something like this, and maybe just press done. You can see that we have a glow at the top and then the dark parts at the bottom. We still have another level of contrast and separation in the image. So there's so many ways to go about this, but this was the lighting setup that I really wanted to do. I wanted the glow in the bottom part and the contrast or the dark parts at the top.
I won't bite. No, no. Love is just around the corner, babe. To do what we want, I wanna get in shape with you all night. All night. Imagine us there. Wanna make sweet love. Imagine us there. Wanna make sweet love. Imagine us there. Wanna make sweet love. All night.
Alright, so that's it for today. I hope you learned something new. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, leave a like, leave a comment and tell me what you think about the images I got from the session. Have you tried this lighting setup before? Stay safe once again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
You don't have to be so